Hello there, welcome to another episode of the Allotment Dram. This is a series of short videos where we sit and talk about different whiskies in the surroundings of our North London allotment. You join me here today on a quite grey, sort of cold, damp sort of day, but perfectly good for doing some work on the plots here. So I've actually got quite a lot done this afternoon. But of course I am here for the Allotment Dram and to talk about whiskey to you. So what is it today, I hear you ask? And it's from Islay, and it's the Bunnahabhain Stiùireadair. And some of you looking at the label will go, how the hell has he got that from that label? And this is a brand, Bunnahabhain. It's a distillery that's very fond of using a Gaelic term or two to name their whiskies, and its name itself is Gaelic, Bunnahabhain, and so no flash graphics here, but I've got a card. So how do we get, that's Bunnahabhain, so a lot of people will look at that and go Bunnahabhain maybe. I heard that a lot, particularly sort of whiskey shows, or so, if when I was working in the shop, the whiskey shop, people would say Bunnahabhain. But actually, if you see, no expense spared here, but we've got Bunna, this is fairly obvious, Haven, Bunnahabhain. And what happens with that, this is the way to remember it, is instead of Bunnahabhain, when you've got a B and a H together like you've got there, actually in Gaelic it becomes a V, a V sound, so Bunnahabhain. But of course the whiskey Stiùireadair, if you look at that, sort of how that's spelt, it's really quite complicated. Not wanting to offend anyone that speaks Gaelic, but that looks just like a very poor hand at Scrabble, and absolutely no idea sort of how to pronounce it. So I had to look it up, and this is again no expense spared. Look at that. So that's how it's actually spelled. Just so many vowels that you really just can't get my head around it. But looking up, this is actually how you say it. So Stiùireadair, Stiùireadair. So Stiùireadair, Stiùireadair. There we go. That's Gaelic sort of 101, something like that. Just very, very complicated, and some of the other whiskies in their range are equally as complicated, but that's their marketing choice, and it kind of reflects their heritage as well, sort of, and the heritage of Islay. But what Bunnahabhain is known for really is being not just from Islay, but a non-peated island. Now obviously you associate that very famous whiskey island with peaty, smoky style of whiskey, and they do make some for a short period of the year, but the majority of their spirit is non-peated. So this is what this is actually, and this is the entry point to their core range. So they have some age statements like 12, 18, 25 and a 40-year-old in the core range, but this sits at the front of that range and is around sort of mid to late 30s in terms of price, pounds, so 35 to say 38 pounds it should be, sort of most places. No age statement as well, and the distillery is quite old, 1881 it's been there since, and it's right up on the very sort of rugged northeastern coast of Islay. And if you go there, it's a idyllic spot. It's got a little beach just in front of it, and it's sort of inaccessible. You go up this sort of really narrow track, and it makes you wonder how the lorries get up there to deliver the grain or take the whiskey away, but this very narrow track, and of course everything used to be delivered by sea to the distillery. That's why it was literally there, and they've still got the jetty there as well. But yeah, you just sort of look across out over this beach and the jetty across to Jura, and you've got the Sound of Jura sort of flowing past, and then the Paps of Jura, the two very famous mountains sort of there. So absolutely lovely spots. But that's enough of that. A sort of bit about Bunnahabhain and Islay, and a few bits about how to pronounce things in Gaelic, but let's have a taste, shall we? So the other cool thing is it actually comes in this small size, 20 cl. So you know, if you want to try, you never tried Bunnahabhain before, and you want to, or you've never tried an unpeated Islay before, you can get this for about 17 or 18 pounds for 20 cl, and as I say, the full size bottle is probably 35 to 38, so quite a cool thing they've done there. So there we go. So we've got two types of sherry cask in here actually, with their unpeated spirit, and this first fill, so the first time any spirit's gone in there, you know, so once the sherry is emptied, and then a refill cask as well. So you can see the colour there, you know, it's really quite that lovely sort of golden, deep gold, but also with a hint of amber, you know, this darker sort of colour that you tend to get from sherry cask. So yeah, very nice. Let's have a smell. So yeah, there's clearly some young whiskies in here. As I say, there's no age statement, but it's got this sort of freshness and vibrancy which sometimes you don't get with these sherry cask whiskies. They can be quite heavy and quite rich. But you've got a lovely sort of fudge and toffee. There's some dried fruits there. There's sort of raisins, sultanas, bit of candied orange peel, but also slightly sort of biscuity, malty quality, and a hint of saltiness actually. So that whole combination, particularly with that sort of fudge and toffee, gives like a salted caramel sort of note. Let's have a taste. Actually, yeah, feels a little bit thinner than I was expecting. It's sherry cask, they normally have this richness and can be slightly heavy, quite viscous actually. But this again has this lightness and vibrancy. It's quite peppery to start with, and there's some green fruit, like a really crisp green apple. You know, when you crunch into it, it's got that. But then comes this sort of, there's some honey, there's the fudge, toffee. Again, this little pinch of salt gives this sort of salted caramel vibe, and then you've got these sort of dried fruits coming underneath. Let's have another taste. Yeah, it's got quite a nice feel to it. It's just really that slightly thin quality that gives its age away, I think. You know, there's obviously some relatively young whiskies in here. And the finish is quite short as well. It's got the sweetness doesn't linger, it just disappears, as does that sort of fruitiness, and it leaves this sort of malty and some developing sort of baking spices to sort of come through. You know, there's a bit of cinnamon in there, there's a bit of again this sort of white pepper, and this maltiness particularly coming through, but even that's quite short, so you know, it's kind of there and then it's gone, you know, which, you know, possibly lets it down, but you know, still, you know, quite enjoyable actually. You know, particularly on a cold damp day like this, it's warmed me right up. So from myself and the Bunnahabhain Stiùireadair, then I bid you farewell. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. So give it a try, give your Gaelic a try, you know, and who knows. See you soon. Cheers.